Hey everyone, welcome to Spotlight, the Calgary Marketing Association podcast. I'm Derek Ovinga. We've got Mark Binkley here, President, El Presidente of the Calgary Marketing Association. And we're actually filming the podcast at Social Launch Labs for the first time. We're going to do a couple episodes like this. And our first guest today, and also thank you for having us, by the way. And also thank you to our corporate partners who, if we wouldn't be able to run podcasts and deliver the content that we've been delivering and hold our events and all that stuff. So thank you so much to all our corporate partners for the Calgary Marketing Association. And today our first guest is going to be Pedro. Pedro, I might need help with your last name again. Is it Allegre or Allegre?
It's Porto Allegre.
Porto?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought that was your middle name.
Oh,
Okay.
no. Oh, gosh. I don't even get me started on my last names. I don't even have a middle name.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
okay.
no, it's
Yeah,
a
I guess
Brazilian
that's the
thing.
Brazilian thing,
Yeah,
right?
they skip it over.
All the family history goes in.
Yeah, exactly. Your last name is like your mom's, your dad's, everybody's last name all together. So I got actually 3 last names, technically.
Oh,
but
really?
I go by Porto Allegre.
Okay, gotcha. So Pedro Porto Allegre, who's the VP of Strategy over at Cult, where he leads strategy departments. You're crafting these standout campaigns. You're helping shape the creative direction in basically Calgary's ad scene. But you've also brought many years of experience in CPG. You worked with PepsiCo. You also worked with WJ, another Calgary company here. And you've covered many roles in sales, analytics, brand. I think you actually won an award, didn't you? Like with the Globe and Mail?
Well, almost. I was third place.
Oh, okay.
Still, bronze medal.
Never mind, he's not that good.
I brought a medal, at least.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's better than 4th place, just not as good as 2nd place. And you also published some great thought leadership content, I think on Medium, and then your newsletter, Marketing Chronicles, which is awesome. So it's really great to have you on the podcast, actually for the 2nd time. You were our first episode, episode number 1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So glad
to be back.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. This is awesome. I absolutely love the pod.
Yeah. Oh, great. I'm glad. Good. You're like one of our only listeners.
No way.
And today I'm basically going to be moderating this discussion because I think you both have some thoughts around, I guess, the funnel. Which is, the AIDA funnel, and then some stuff around evidence-based marketing and stuff like that. So I thought, let's start off maybe basically defining what AIDA means, the whole awareness, interest, and all that stuff. Why don't we start talking about that, Pedro? Why don't we lean into that right now?
Yeah, totally. I think I'm increasingly among my colleagues, I'm one of the last few people that still believe in the funnel, interestingly enough. But, I think, first of all, the funnel itself started out in the 19th century. Like, it's actually a pretty old, metaphor. It started out by a guy named something Elmo. I actually always forget his name. But, he basically used to go door to door selling, like, insurance, I believe, or something like that. And the funnel was called the sales funnel. It wasn't yet called a funnel, but there was the model of, grabbing attention, instigating desire, interest, and then closing a sale. And it was all done in like a scripted format, as a salesperson. But then over the course of the 20th century, essentially brand management wasn't invented until, I believe 1931. So up until that point, it was still very much sales focused. And then when brand management came along, they started incorporating into this metaphor of the funnel, where now it's beyond just sales and into more marketing activities, et cetera. And since then, we've seen probably over 1,000 iterations of it. And in the 21st century now, I think a lot of folks are doing away with the funnel, or maybe not realizing they're still using it, but calling it something else.
Yeah, and like, what are we calling it, basically? Because I know, Mark, you have some thoughts around, the traditional funnel and how, customers or prospects move through it. So why don't we talk about your thoughts around the funnel?
They don't move through it. That's the weird thing about it. Like, we have this assumption of the funnel, and as Pedro said, 1898 is when this guy, Elmo St. Louis, kind of designed the funnel as a sales tool to teach how to sell for door-to-door salesmen. So the idea of like getting your foot in the door was the version of awareness that they were all familiar with. Like literally putting your foot in the door to get somebody to pay attention to what you're saying. And so, we take this idea of a funnel, it's become very ubiquitous everywhere in marketing. And it's been adopted by marketing. And so the idea is that you have different stages of customer adoption, let's call it. Yeah. And so they go through an awareness stage, then interest, then desire, then action. And you put more leads in at the top or more customers in at the top, and slowly they trickle through the funnel and they come out the bottom as a sale or conversion. And then we all talk about the leaky funnel because there's parts where people leak out. But in reality, customers don't go into an awareness store and then see what's there, and then they go to the next door into interest, and then the next door into desire, and the next door into action. That's more the sales process than it is the customer journey. The customer journey can be very chaotic and very disjointed and unorganized. And you can go from like a purchase lane at the grocery store. You can go from awareness, interest, and desire and action all in a matter of seconds. And it's not even necessarily going through those stages. You're just going from actually checkout to purchase all in one step. Yeah. So it doesn't, I think that's the part of the funnel I think that a lot of people are starting to question, is that it's become ubiquitous, it's become commonplace. And there are some things that are useful about it, but it's not really how customers buy. And I think that's where it becomes a bit of a problem when you have this apparatus of how we think, like an operating system, that it doesn't match reality of how customers actually buy.
It's interesting, right? Because you're trying to like force them through the funnel, through drip campaigns and so on and so forth. Pedro, do you have any thoughts around that?
Absolutely. I mean, I think this example around, let's say, going to a grocery store, and I believe Andrew Ehrenberg actually in the 70s or 60s, I'm not exactly sure when, he did a revision of the funnel. And he said, look, if you're buying toilet paper, like, you're not going to go from awareness to consideration to interest, and purchase. It's actually like, awareness to purchase and then repeat. That was kind of like the simplified funnel that Ehrenberg kind of came up with, because certain categories are just that more impulsive. But I think one of the big misconceptions that I, try to clarify when I'm starting to use the funnel with clients or with even my existing brands, it's like, the funnel is not something you push people through. I totally agree. I think it's a snapshot in time of where the market is at. And you can actually derive some pretty interesting insights, like diagnostics about what is that you got to go prioritize in your marketing planning. So it's not so much of a tool like a customer journey tool per se. And it's also not a wholesale kind of model that you lift and drop on every brand, right? Like if you did that, you're actually, not thinking about your brand through a brand lenses. You're kind of thinking it through like a commoditized lenses, right? You're taking a template and applying to your brand. You have to think through every single stage of your quote unquote funnel for your brand. And that's going to be different, depending on the brands that you're working on. So to me, that's kind of like the main thing. And then the last thing I would say is, to your point, Mark, is like, it's a mental model. It's a metaphor that has been incredibly useful over the past 100 plus years, but it's not E equals MC squared kind of model. It doesn't answer every question of the marketing universe, right? It's every model and strategy is about prioritizing the things that matter, and then some things, of course, are going to be left out of that.
Yeah, I think the advantage for the funnel is that most people know it. And so, unless you're going to be an advocate for something else, it's just shorthand. Everybody gets it. For the most part, there's language like tofu and bofu, and we all kind of use that kind of like top of funnel, bottom of funnel, mid funnel. And so, even for people who aren't in marketing, I think a lot of people have an understanding of like the funnel in some form. Like somebody in the finance department or somebody in operate, they have an idea of what that means. So then to re-educate people becomes problematic, I think. And so it becomes a trap in a sense, in that, on one hand it's good because it's a shorthand for everyone, but on the other hand it's bad because then you're trapped into this type of thinking. It doesn't really explain how marketing works or how buyers buy, but we all kind of use it, so we all know it, so we all use it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, it's interesting, right? Because I'm not saying it's like an unsophisticated tactic, but the traditional funnel is basically the funnel that is easy to implement and measure, right? So how do you sell, let's say, to your clients or whoever you're working with, kind of this new thinking to show, like they need to show this immediate, short-term results, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you try to sell this other thinking around the funnel?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I can start. I think one of the things that the funnel is incredibly useful for is to set objectives. And I think every strategy, every brand plan is not complete without some very clear objectives. Objectives, in the end of the day, are what's going to drive focus for a brand. And because otherwise, if you don't have objectives, you're just going to be chasing whatever comes your way, and you're just going to be focusing on the wrong things. What the funnel essentially does for you is says, okay, you might have a awareness problem when you benchmark it against the category. Maybe your conversion at the bottom of the funnel it might seem low, but when you look at the category benchmark, it's actually above the category benchmark, right? And so if you want to increase the number, like absolute number of people converting, then you might need to improve your middle of the funnel, which might be below the category average, right? And so to me, that is a way that I try to draw that line. Obviously, it's not immediate. I think Traxxas recently released like a report that kind of, was an attempt at showing the correlation between increased awareness and efficiency in conversion at the bottom of the funnel. And you can kind of draw that line with this model because you know your conversion rates along each stage of the funnel. So if you increase your awareness, you know what that's going to result at the bottom of the funnel. Obviously, it's an imperfect science, but it gives you a kind of directional focus on what to go work on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Good, bad. One of the bad things about, I agree, like setting objectives, totally important. But also, in my mind, not specific to the funnel. Like most of the businesses are going to have some kind of business objective. So it's not necessarily predetermined by the funnel what those business objectives are. It is the business objective, and then we're kind of using the funnel to try and figure out where marketing can translate those business objectives into marketing numbers. Mm-hmm. The challenge with the funnel, one of the challenges with the funnel that I think is that you've got this idea of like this, well, the funnel, the shape of it itself is that the top level is awareness. Awareness being a general broad thing. So the idea is, well, we have low awareness, so we got to increase awareness. But awareness itself doesn't matter unless you're in the market to buy something. And so then situational awareness matters more than just general broad awareness. Like if I think of, like I'm thirsty right now, if I don't think of Coke because I'm thirsty, then that is a problem for Coke. That I know Coke exists is one thing, but that I think of it when I'm thirsty is more important. Mm-hmm. So that's where I think some of the opportunities are for the brand is to go, it's not just about general brand awareness, it's about situational awareness, in particular buying situations that lead to these business objectives that matter. And so you can get kind of caught up in the funnel just going, well, it's like our awareness, broadly speaking, is this, if you even measure that. Yeah. And so that's a bit of I think the lack of specificity around the funnel makes it a little bit, in that sense, a little bit challenging to figure out what you're actually doing to drive marketing towards business goals.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I love that. And I think, if I may add, it's like, if you're talking about like brand salience, which is the whole element around situational awareness in the right moments, right purchasing occasions, that could be your top of the funnel. Like it could be that maybe what you need is to, run a survey to understand, okay, what are the, your levels of associations with a certain category entry point, and how do your competitors benchmark against that category entry point, and that is your top of the funnel, right? And maybe if you improve that SEP, right, category entry point, you're gonna see then the next stage improving as well. And so I think that's where I see the funnel being misused, is this wholesale approach of like the top always has to be awareness. Doesn't, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be. It could be salience. It could be a certain category entry point. It could be something else.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like, yeah, the funnel doesn't you're right. The funnel doesn't have to be awareness. What is it? Awareness,
Interest, desire, action.
and action. Right. It could be anything.
Yeah.
Can you think of, let's say, it always falls into like marketing budgets, right? So like, let's think of like a practical example of a company that might have a limited marketing budget. You mentioned Coke. They're unlimited, basically.
They still have limits.
Well, yeah, limits, but those limits are pretty huge, I'm sure.
They're also
nice
trying
limits.
to reach like the global
Oh,
population.
for sure.
So they're
Yeah. And they have.
yeah.
But what about like a smaller company that needs to allocate, resources pretty effectively? Like, how could each of these models kind of inform their decisions, would you say? So from like your traditional model to anything else that we can think of?
Oh, I love that question because, to me, like I said, the funnel's most valuable contribution to any marketing plan is in setting objectives, right? And so what oftentimes happens is business objectives, they will come down from, the board or, the executive leadership team. And let's say it might be, we need to grow market share by 5%, let's say. It's actually a very common objective in big CPG companies. Now, once that then hits the marketing department, right? It's like, and hopefully the CMO is involved in setting those business objectives, right? Which I think oftentimes they're not, and ideally they are. Once they hit the marketing department, it's what does gaining 5% market share mean from a marketing objective standpoint, right? Is it increasing, category entry point associations with, drinking something refreshing in a hot podcast booth? It could be. Essentially, that could be, and then essentially as you kind of work backwards from the bottom to the top, you say, okay, look, if we're going to grow 5% market share, that means that we're going to need to increase our sales by 100 million.
Yeah.
Right? And as you work backwards through your funnel, which is more of a diagnostic tool, you're going to say, hey, $100,000 worth of budget won't cut it. I'm going to need $500,000 worth of budget, and here's why. And I can explain to you how will that impact your funnel all the way down to sales. And of course, like I said, it's an imperfect science, but it gives you some directionality when you're planning. And if they say, look, we don't have $500,000 worth of budget, then you say, okay, well then this is as much as I'm going to be able to move the needle on from a sales standpoint, which means you're going to miss market share by 3 points, right? So to me, that is kind of how you go from business objectives to marketing objectives, and then using the funnel as a diagnostic tool on where to go invest that money.
I love that you're drawing. We can't see.
Yeah, I know. It's mostly just for my own reference. I'm like, I like drawing, sketch. You can see this. I think one of it's 5% market share. Let's just take that as, for any company, let's say they're trying to increase 5%. One of the other challenges about the funnel, if you think about going back to where it came from again, it's a sales training tool.
Yeah.
Create awareness about who I am, the product I have, spark desire when I got the door open, physically have a door open, or interest and desire, and then ask that person through a close, can you buy this today? Which is really helpful, especially in a sales environment. And having been a former sales guy, very powerful kind of framework to help manage and direct sales teams as an individual. When you move into a market share situation, or you move into like market penetration, or you move into increased revenue by X percent or X thousand customers we gotta get more of, that kind of thing. Now you're moving outside of just an individual contributor, but you still have a funnel which says, well, this is the marketing department's job to create interest, to create desire, to create action. But it almost takes responsibility off of distribution, the product supply chain, the sales people, the staff people, anything to do with retail. Like if all the stores are closed, you can't sell unless you've got e-com, or the e-com assortment and the merchant feed and all that kind of stuff. So it almost takes this idea of sales being not just an individual, like as opposed to an individual. It says marketing's job is to drive that market penetration. When in reality, it's an entirely team sport.
Right.
And it has almost very little to do with marketing. But yet we use this funnel that says, well, we'll just, put a couple of bucks in and it'll make it rain out here, because we're going to generate demand and it'll come out as a conversion in the next, give it a couple hours. So it becomes a problem where it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy where people are like, well, what does marketing do? And marketing says, well, we do this. We put money in the top of the funnel, it comes out as cash at the bottom, and then lo and behold, it doesn't actually deliver on that. And then we're sitting there with trying to explain what the ROI of marketing is, when it really is a comprehensive entire team interdepartmental, intra-departmental activity to try and deliver on those sales goals and objectives.
Right. So I'd say this is probably a nuanced question, but how do you get the entire revenue operations to think the same way?
Well, partially, I mean, this is a little bit what Pedro and I have been chatting about with when we talk about CEPs, but the idea of a different model that better explains how, literally there's a couple books called How Brands Grow. And the model there is mental and physical availability. So the mental availability part is is it easy to come to mind in those situations? And is it recognizable that when I go to physically buy it, it's there and it looks like when I saw it on the ad? So it's the combination of those two things that is, I think, a better model that's more comprehensive and more inclusive of entire business to try and achieve the same objective, as opposed to funnels, which is just more a marketing thing that puts all the responsibility on marketing.
No, I love that. I actually, honestly, I've been indoctrinated by the Edinburgh Bass Institute, and I buy that book to every single one of my team members because the findings are incredible. And I think, mental availability, I think it's another word for salience, oftentimes, right? There is interchangeably. Whereas physical availability, it's like, hey, are you, do you have enough distribution? Are you in the right location on the shelf? Where people are going to be able to find you? Anyways, there's a variety of ways for you to be, or even search, like if you're a service, like keywords, for example, it's a form of physical availability. And
dig into that for a sec, because I think that's super interesting.
Yeah, totally. Because I think oftentimes when you are a business that offers a service, you don't have a point of distribution like a retailer.
Yeah. So
how do people find you, right? Well, since the early 2000s, has been searching you on Google, and that is your quote unquote retail address in the internet. And so you have to be able to show up in the right places. SEO oftentimes helps you with improving your physical availability for service, right? But then also oftentimes, especially in B2B, there is the sales force, right? And the sales force is where I see them playing a role in the funnel is in the bottom of the funnel. Like it's that final mile, that 5% in market versus the 95% that's out of market, right? Like they're focusing on that 5% that's currently looking to buy, and whereas the mental availability piece is more the top of the funnel. Now, where this model, this theory of mental availability and physical availability, which I don't even think you can call it a theory, it's actually empirical, is basically it skips through the middle of the funnel. And that's totally fine. I think, look, some businesses don't have a middle of the funnel, like it's just bottom and top, like toilet paper. But other businesses, like more complex B2B businesses that use CRM tools to, nurture a lead, etc., that's your middle of the funnel, and I think that's something that I haven't been able to reconcile with the mental and physical availability model, but.
Yeah, I have some thoughts on that too. Like there's work from not Kantar, Gartner on the the long hard slog. If you look it up on Google, it's like really, it looks like spaghetti.
Yeah.
So there's a part coming in, and there's a customer coming in this end, and there's a customer coming out that end as a sale. In the middle is this bowl of spaghetti, basically, of all the crazy things that they have to do. So that's the middle of the funnel in my mind. It's not linear, it's not logical, and it is completely chaotic. And so even Google's got the messy middle as a version of this, right? And so there's at least a dozen models. Zmod is one, the messy middle is one, there's this long hard slog that's one. There's all kinds of different models that Hankins hexagon is another one that comes to mind. The mental and physical availability is another one. Like there's all
I'm picturing
different.
you going into a marketing meeting and just being like, "We're going to use this model."
Right. Which is why, again, coming back to the funnel, everybody defaults to it because it's so. Most people know it, and you don't have to convince people. So there's just an acceptance of that, and so there's a shorthand and shortcut. But especially in B2B, the middle part is crazy what people have to go through it, and there isn't like just one economic buyer. There's a multitude of buyers in the range of 10 to 15, sometimes 25 different people that are popping into the decision-making process at various points in time, and all the people have equal amount of say in what gets chosen. So that's where the brand stuff becomes so important, because if people don't agree on what's going to be bought, especially in B2B, then it's definitely not going to be bought, because nobody wants to get fired for picking the wrong thing and sticking their neck out. And so there's this constant play between short and long, and so building the awareness for people, but also then creating this instant, when you're ready, buy now, sure, which would be bottom of the funnel, but also to balance that with, hey, there's a lot of people that are going to be popping in and out of this decision journey who may have not heard of this. We need to also reach them. So I think those kinds of things matter a lot, and especially in reconciling the middle part. I think where you can create an infinite number of user journeys, which then becomes, because you've got different personas, and I think that's where simple is better. And so there's two stages of mental and physical availability paired are really kind of another way of saying, even as a funnel, if you have to go down the funnel route, just top of funnel and bottom of funnel rather than all the middle stuff.
And I think you raised a really good point around how do you, the bottom of the funnel kind of ignores this element of distribution. I think that when you think about the marketing mix 4 Ps, right, which is your set of tactics, product, price, place, promotion, right? You can actually influence each stage of the funnel by developing tactics that touch on each one of those 4 Ps. And it might be that, hey, my bottom of the funnel is underperforming relative to the category. You go, do a diagnosis of it, and you realize that your distribution is actually the problem. And so, that's place, right? The 4 Ps. And you fix that, all of a sudden your bottom of the funnel starts performing. And so I think, I don't think the funnel necessarily is a tactical tool. Like I said, it's a diagnostic tool. The 4 Ps is where you kind of then take the tactics to go influence the funnel, which is a snapshot in time of how your business is performing along the purchase to, the path of purchase.
You wrote a good article about this too recently, where, but the idea, the funnel itself, and if you think about the funnel again exclusively as its own thing, it starts forming that idea that if that's your hammer, and so everything that I have is, or so that's my nail, and so everything I have is my hammer, is everything I have is advertising at my disposal.
Correct.
And if you think about advertising, as being one of the 4 Ps, there's so many other Ps that you, as a marketer, have access to think about, and so it gives you more flexibility and more options when you think about adjusting price. Obviously, discounts are part of that, but that's a natural thing for a lot of marketers to go to. But distribution there's a question mark around distribution. There's question marks around the products and the way you're positioning products and that kind of stuff. And so across the 4 Ps, you've got more flexibility, I think, than you ever thought you had. If you're only thinking about advertising through the funnel lens, you kind of go, oh, everything is just a result of an ad, and so it's limiting.
Right. And the beauty too of like the promotional P of advertising is that there's the long and the short of it. Chances are, if you're working on a big brand campaign, that's the long of it, and so the influence is likely going to be more prevalent on the top of the funnel versus the bottom, right? Because there's no CTA per se. It's not targeted to people who are in market necessarily that are going to convert, and so you're not going to see and that's the thing. Like oftentimes people will measure a brand campaign by bottom of the funnel metrics, like conversion, and that's a problem, right? You should be measuring it by top of the funnel metrics, which could be salience, category entry points, etc. And then you have the bottom of the funnel performance marketing, where it's that more targeted, could be even keywords, search, advertising, etc. That is more focused on conversion.
Even measuring the bottom of the funnel, like I don't know how. I spent a lot of time playing in both worlds, and so a couple of stories. One story, we broke Facebook once when I was working at Sport Check, and we were about $100,000 a week in media spend. And most of that was top of the funnel spend, reach, optimized campaigns. When Facebook broke, all of our bottom of the funnel campaigns started going weird. They all kind of broke. The signals were going all over the place. It got worse. And so our aha was they actually worked together. We just couldn't measure it.
Right.
So then the other problem is if you're only measuring bottom of funnel stuff, like clicks and click-through rates and conversions, I'm not sure what that actually even means, because unless you're 100% e-com, you're not able to track everything. And then you get further down the path and you go, okay, well, let's go spreadsheet marketing on this thing and go, well, which one is getting us the best ROAS? And so then you're providing a recommendation based on an attribution model that's going to favor whatever channel is that has the best ROAS. So they're grading their own homework. So then what are you actually measuring? And they're going to all say, we got credit for that sale. So you add up all the sales and you go, okay, well, that's got one, that's got the one. Okay, we have 4 sales, but you look at the bank account and you go, actually, we only have 1 sale. What's going on here? So it's to simplify marketing and down to one number like a ROAS or ROI or channel by channel ad spend kind of performance is also problematic, because it's not really the answer. It's that we think it is.
Right. It sounds like a long strategy session with a client. Right? Like it's just going to be nonstop, and it'll be like a few days. We're going to test things out, see how it performs, then we're going to switch it up the next quarter, and so on and so forth. So, I think this is an awesome discussion. I think there's tons more we could probably talk about, but we only have a little bit of time because our next guest is waiting. But Pedro, thanks so much for actually coming in and talking to us outside of Zoom this time. This is a great conversation, and I really appreciate you coming on here. And Mark.
Yeah, thanks, Pedro.
Yeah, Mark, great answers to all of Pedro's comments as well. Again, thank you so much for Social Launch Labs for having us here. Thanks to our corporate partners, and we'll see you in the next episode.